People like you are nothing but trouble." The white woman's scream sliced through the quiet morning as a young black boy stood frozen on her porch clutching his baseball. Before he could explain, police lights flashed. 2 white officers pinned him down, snapping cold cuffs on his wrists like he was some dangerous criminal. But what they didn't know was that the suspect they were arresting was the son of someone they should never have crossed, and this arrest would ignite a reckoning that would shake the entire city. Before we dive in this story, let us know where you're watching from. We love to hear your thought. The sirens tore through the quiet Sunday air, sharp and sudden like a blade. 2 police cruisers screeched to a stop in front of a neat white house, flag on the porch, red geraniums by the steps, everything perfect except for the chaos unfolding in the street. A white woman in yoga pants stood in the driveway, arms folded tight, her voice shrill and trembling with fury. "There, that's him. That little thug tried to break into my house." Her face was flushed, her phone was still in her hand, camera rolling. Right on the porch, a small black boy stood motionless, backpack half slipped from his shoulder, one shoe untied, chest heaving. He couldn't have been older than 9. In his left hand, a baseball glove. "Ma'am, step back," said one of the officers, already unsnapping his holster, but she didn't move. "Be careful. He reached into his pocket earlier. I think he's got something. I saw him sneaking around looking in windows." "I wasn't," the boy began, his voice cracking. "Shut up," the woman snapped. "You people always have an excuse." The cop's hand rested heavy on his gun. "Hands where I can see them, son. Now." The boy's knees trembled as he raised his hands higher. "Please sir, I didn't do anything. I was just looking for my ball." On the ground. Face down, now. 45 minutes earlier the day had started soft. Warm light slid down the roofs of Pine Street, glinting off car hoods and neat mailboxes. Somewhere, a sprinkler hissed and clicked, water catching the air like mist. Eli Carter was walking down the sidewalk, tossing a baseball into the air, catching it with that soft slap that always made him smile. The ball gleamed white in the sun, the letters E. Carter carved neatly on one side. His dad had burned them in himself last Christmas, steady and proud. He wore his favorite jersey, faded blue, sleeves a size too big, but it felt like armor. His bat rested on his shoulder, glove folded and clipped to his backpack. He was on his way to Marcus's house, 2 blocks over, already picturing the sound of the bat cracking against the ball, the grass under his sneakers, the laughter. The world was quiet, friendly, simple, until it wasn't. Eli didn't know that little white ball, bright and harmless, would roll him straight into a storm. A crunch of bike tires broke the calm. Then a voice behind him, lazy, mocking. "Yo Carter, where you goin', champ?" Eli turned and saw Jake and Ryan, classmates from school. Both white, both taller. Their bikes zigzagged down the street like they owned it, mud dried on their shoes, caps turned backward, that look that said trouble was fun. Jake pointed at the ball. "That your little trophy?" Eli smiled politely. "It's my birthday ball." "Birthday ball?" Ryan barked a laugh. "Man, that's adorable. You name your dolls too." Eli tried to keep walking. "Come on guys, I gotta go." Jake swerved his bike in front of him, blocking the sidewalk. "Hey, relax, we're just talking. Don't get all defensive." He leaned closer, grin curling. "Let me see it." Eli hesitated. "No, it's mine." Jake's grin hardened. "You got an attitude problem, huh? You people always think you're better than everybody else now." Eli blinked. "You people." Jake's smirk didn't fade. "Yeah, you heard me." Ryan circled behind him, wheels scraping the curb. "Bet you don't even play for real. Probably just walk around holding that thing so folks think you belong." "I do play," Eli said quietly. Ryan snorted. "Sure you do. Bet the team's called the city sanitation crew." Jake laughed. "Or maybe the community outreach program." Ryan cackled. "Yeah, where they teach y'all to stay out of nice neighborhoods." Eli's fists tightened around the ball. "Please stop it, you're being mean." Jake tilted his head, mock sympathy on his face. "Aw, come on, don't cry. We're just playing. Give me my ball back," Eli said. Jake plucked it from his hand before he could react. "Man, you're slow." He held it up, turning it under the sunlight. "Look at this," he even wrote his name. E. Carter. Ryan leaned over his shoulder. "What's the E stand for?" "Excuse me, officer, or maybe evidence." Both of them burst out laughing. "Stop it," Eli shouted, voice shaking. Jake grinned wider. Touchy. Thought y'all were tougher than this." And before Eli could move, Jake wound up and hurled the ball as hard as he could. It flew across the street, a white streak in the sunlight, until crash, the window opened, something in the house broke. The sound was not too big, but it would echo for hours. A woman's scream cut through the air. A lace curtain fluttered like a flag of panic. All three froze. Jake's eyes went wide for a second, then he broke into a grin. "Oh man, you're done, bro." Eli stared, panicked. "What? You threw it?" Jake shrugged, already turning his bike. "Shouldn't have brought it here, man. Not my fault you can't catch." Ryan chuckled. "Yeah, better run. Cops don't play around out here." They pedaled off, laughing, tires spitting gravel. Eli just stood there, heart pounding. The ball lay on the lawn below the broken window of a perfect white painted house, trimmed hedges, a flag waving slow in the breeze. The kind of house where people didn't forget your face. He swallowed hard. Take responsibility. That's what Mom always said. He walked across the street, bent down, picked up the ball, dusted it off with shaking fingers, and climbed the steps to the porch. He pressed the doorbell. Ding dong. The door flew open a few seconds later. A white woman stood there, maybe mid-50s, hair sprayed into tight curls, wearing pearls over a pastel sweater. Her eyes scanned him like a scanner at the airport. Brown skin, backpack, everything catalogued before she spoke. "What do you want?" she snapped. Eli swallowed. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, my friends they were messing around, and one of them threw this ball. It hit your window. I didn't mean for that to happen." Her lips thinned. "Oh, you didn't mean to. That's sweet. My vase was broken. You think that fixes it?" "No ma'am. I just wanted to apologize and maybe call my mom, she can pay for it." She squinted. "You got parents?" "Yes ma'am." "Don't ma'am me. You kids think you can just come around, break things, then act all polite when you get caught. I'll call someone who'll deal with you." She barked, but before slamming the door she jabbed a finger toward the porch ceiling. "And don't even think about running, boy. That camera right there." She pointed at a small black dome above the door, the red light blinking. "It's been recording your face this whole time. Every second. You so much as move, and I'll send this footage straight to the police and the homeowners group." Eli froze on the steps. "Ma'am please, I'm not, don't ma'am me. You think I'm stupid?" Her phone was already in her hand. "No more talking. You're gonna stand right there and wait. You like attention. I'll make you famous." Her voice grew sharper, almost triumphant. "Go ahead, try to leave. I'll post this video online before you hit the corner. Everyone'll see what kind of punk you are. And then I'll sue you for damages. You and your whole family'll be paying off that window till you die." Eli's throat went dry. "I didn't break it on purpose." "Shut it," she snapped. Then with a deliberate sigh she lowered the phone, switching screens. Her voice changed, syrupy, trembling, performative. "Hello 911? Yes, there's a young black male outside my house. He's trying to break in. He's right here, I have him on camera. Yes, he's still here. He looks angry, dangerous. Please hurry." Eli's chest clenched. "What? No, that's not." He knocked on the door again, desperate. "Ma'am please, I didn't." Through the curtain she glared at him, phone still to her ear. "He's yelling now. I think he's got a weapon." He knocked on the door again, desperate. No, ma'am please, I didn't." Through the glass, she glared at him, phone still to her ear. "I'm telling you, he's threatening me right now." Eli backed away, breathing fast. "I didn't do anything." The curtain slammed shut. The street was silent again, except for one faint sound in the distance. Sirens. They started small, then grew louder. Eli stood frozen in the sunlight, clutching his baseball like it was the only proof he was human. The sirens screamed closer, bouncing off the houses like a warning. Eli froze in the middle of the sidewalk, clutching the baseball tight to his chest. A police cruiser swung around the corner too fast and stopped with a screech. Two white officers jumped out, sunglasses, shaved heads, hands already resting on their holsters. The woman from the porch pointed, voice cracking with drama. That's him. That's the one I told you about. He tried to break into my house. The taller officer, Sergeant Miller, didn't even look at her. His eyes locked on Eli. Hands up, let me see your hands. Eli's voice shook. Sir, I didn't. Shut up. Hands in the air now. The second officer, Officer Brent, flanked him from behind. Where's your weapon, kid? I don't have one. I swear. Eli said, stepping back. Don't move. Miller barked. Eli froze, arms trembling in the air. His heart was pounding so loud it drowned out the sirens. I'm not armed, he said, voice breaking. Yeah? Brent sneered. That's what you all say. Till someone's bleeding. Miller's tone dropped, calm but cold. You live around here? Yes, sir. 3 blocks down. Miller chuckled. Sure you do. He turned to the woman. You seen him before? Never in my life, she said. But they walk around sometimes. Always looking for trouble. Eli blinked, trying to understand. I wasn't. Miller cut him off. Quiet. You were trespassing. I was just trying to get my ball back. My friends. Oh, so it's their fault now. Miller said. Typical. Brent laughed. He's got that smart mouth already. 9 going on 25. Eli's lip trembled. Please, sir, I didn't. Shut your mouth. Miller snapped, taking a step closer. The woman folded her arms. He was shouting at me. Said he'd make me regret it. I didn't. Eli said desperately. I just said sorry. Miller turned, smirking. What's your name, kid? Eli. Eli Carter. That's a cute name, Brent said. You in a gang, Eli? No, yeah, they always say that too. Brent muttered, circling him. Miller tilted his head. You got ID? No, sir, I'm 9. Then how do I know you're not lying? Because I'm 9. The 2 cops exchanged a laugh. Smartass, Brent muttered. Eli's breathing grew uneven. Please, I just wanna call my mom. She's your mom? What? She gonna sue us? That how you people do it now? Miller shot back. The woman interjected again, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. He kept reaching into his bag. I think he's got something in there. Brent's voice rose. Step back, ma'am. We'll handle it. Then to Eli. Drop the bag, now. Eli dropped it fast. It hit the ground with a thud, the sound of his glove and sandwich rattling inside. Miller kicked it open with his boot. He stared at the contents, a sandwich, a glove, a few crumpled papers, and still scowled. Could have been a weapon, he said. It's not. Could have been, Miller repeated. Doesn't matter now. He stepped forward suddenly and grabbed Eli's wrist. The boy flinched, startled. The cuffs clicked, a sound so small, so certain, and none of them knew it would echo through every courtroom in Brookline. Don't touch me. Miller twisted his arm behind his back. Oh, you're resisting arrest now. I'm not resisting. Brent smirked. You sure look like it. Miller shoved him face first against the patrol car. Eli cried out, cheek pressed against the hot metal. Stop moving, Miller yelled. I'm not, he sobbed. Please. The cuffs clicked tight around his wrists. His small arms trembled. Another little punk who thinks he's special, Miller muttered. Brent added. You know what's funny? They all think they're innocent. Every single one. They laughed like men untouchable. And maybe that was their first mistake. The woman watched, lips tight with satisfaction. Thank you, officers. I feel much safer now. Miller nodded without looking at her. We've got it handled, ma'am. You did the right thing. She smiled. I knew he was trouble the second I saw him. Eli turned, tears streaking his face. Please, I didn't. Please let me call my mom. She's quiet. Miller snapped. You'll talk when you're spoken to. Brent grabbed the back of his neck and pushed him into the car. You're gonna sit there and think about what happens when you mess with the wrong neighborhood. I didn't do anything. Yeah, Brent said flatly. And I'm Santa Claus. Bang. The sound of the car door pulled him back to reality. Outside, the woman stood on her porch, arms folded, watching like she just won something. Miller and Brent spoke beside the car. So what we writing it as? Brent asked. Miller shrugged. Suspicious behavior. Attempted burglary. Maybe resisting, depending on how he acts later. Burglary. Brent smirked. That'll look nice on the paperwork. Hell, he fits the description for half the calls we get anyway. They both laughed, that low, cruel kind of laugh that doesn't need words. The radio crackled. Unit 21. What's your status? Miller keyed his mic. Unit 21. Juvenile male in custody. Possible attempted B&E. Copy that, Unit 21. They got in the car. Eli sat silent in the back, tears drying on his cheeks. The cruiser pulled away from the curb. The sirens weren't on this time, just the slow rumble of the engine. Outside, the neighborhood returned to normal. Sprinklers ticking, kids riding bikes, flags waving gently in the breeze. Only the shattered window and the small baseball lying in the grass said anything had happened at all. The cruiser screeched behind the station, tires spitting gravel. The air reeked of oil and wet asphalt. A floodlight hummed overhead, bleaching everything in harsh white. The back door yanked open. Move, Miller barked, dragging Eli by the arm. The boy stumbled out, wrists still cuffed tight, his knees trembling. Faster, damn it. Miller snapped, you walk slower than my grandma. He shoved him toward the door. Jesus, what's that smell? Oh right, that's you. Inside, the station was a tomb of noise and fluorescent light. Phones ringing, typewriters clacking, radios hissing, men laughing somewhere down the hall. The smell was a mixture of sweat, coffee gone sour, and bleach that couldn't quite hide the stink of old piss. Nobody looked up. Nobody cared. Got another one. Miller muttered, shoving Eli toward the desk. Behind the counter sat a fat sergeant with a donut in one hand and a clipboard in the other. His mustache was yellowed from cigarettes. He glanced up. Jesus Christ, Miller, again. Yeah, Miller said, smirking. Caught him prowlin' around some lady's porch, said he was playin' baseball. The sergeant snorted. Baseball, huh? What's next? Basketball scholarship. These little shits always got a sports story. He leaned forward, studying Eli. How old's this one? Hell if I know. Maybe teen, hard to tell when they grow up that fast. The room chuckled. Eli's voice cracked. Please, I didn't. I was just, the sergeant waved him off. Christ, they all start with that line. Please sir. They teach you that in your fancy street school. Someone nearby called out, careful Sarge, he might cry. Better get the tissues. Laughter erupted. Miller leaned close to Eli's ear, breath hot and sour. You hear that? They already love you here. Welcome home, Junior. Eli swallowed hard, his wrists aching. Please sir, I didn't mean to. Didn't mean to what? Miller snapped. Didn't mean to scare a white woman. Didn't mean to fit every goddamn description we ever get over the radio. The sergeant chuckled. Oh, I bet his mom's real proud. What's she do, huh? Work the drive-thru or clean houses? Eli's lips parted but no words came. Yeah, the sergeant said, reading the silence, that's what I thought. Brent walked in, younger, slick hair, coffee in hand, badge swinging like jewelry. Who's the little superstar? He asked. Neighborhood menace, Miller replied. Lady said he tried to break in. Brent smirked. Bet he'll say he was just asking for directions. They all got some fairy tale. He leaned down eye to eye with Eli. You one of those good kids they talk about on the news. Eli whispered. I didn't do anything. Brent grinned. Oh, I know, you're all innocent. Till we check the record. He looked over at Miller. You run his name. Miller laughed. Why, he's 9. The record's still loading. The sergeant scratched his chin. You booking him? Nah, Miller said. Throw him in holding. Let him sweat it out. Teaches him faster than paperwork. Brent nodded. Hell yeah, fear's a better lesson than justice. Eli tried again. Please, I just want to call my mom. The sergeant smirked. Oh, how sweet. You think we're your babysitters now. What's she gonna do? Come hug the truth out of you. Miller added. You know what moms like yours do, kid. They show up screamin', playin' the race card, making noise for the cameras. Seen it 100 times. Brent laughed. Yeah. And then the TV folks come runnin'. All little boy wrongfully accused. Next thing you know, there's protests, hashtags, and nobody remembers the lady with the broken window. Eli's lips trembled. It was an accident. Miller tilted his head. Oh yeah? Then why's she the one with glass on her floor, and you're the one in cuffs? He tapped the side of Eli's head with 2 fingers. Answer, because life don't give a damn about your accidents. Strip him, the sergeant said suddenly. We're not getting stabbed by some honor student tonight. Eli froze. What? No, please. Brent already yanked the backpack off his shoulders, dumping everything onto the floor. A folded glove, a math workbook, a small sandwich crushed flat. Brent held it up. Lunch of champions. He sniffed the sandwich, made a face, then threw it in the trash. Guess welfare ain't what it used to be. The others snickered. Miller searched his pockets roughly. Empty. Of course it's empty, the sergeant said. Ain't got shit but excuses. Miller shoved Eli toward the hallway. Let's go. Maybe the boys in holding can teach you manners. The hallway was long, narrow, and yellowed under bad lights. Old posters flapped on the walls. Know your rights half torn, smeared with something brown. The air grew hotter with every step. Keep moving, Miller barked. When Eli slowed, he kicked the back of his shoe. You deaf? Or you just actin' slow? They reached the steel door. Miller banged on it twice. A buzzer groaned, and the lock clicked open. The holding cell was small, gray, suffocating. A single bulb flickered overhead like it was dying of boredom. 10 men already sat inside. All black, all silent. The air was thick. Sweat, fear, stale breath. One man had his head in his hands. Another stared blankly at the floor, humming something low. Eli stopped at the threshold. Please, Miller shoved him hard. Get in, Junior. He stumbled forward, landing against the cold wall. Brent grinned. Welcome to the club, champ. Membership's free, but you don't get out easy. Behind them the door slammed, and with it the beginning of their end. Hell of a view, ain't it? All that melanin in one room. Brent laughed. Zoo exhibit. I swear we ought to charge admission. Miller added, don't feed the animals. Someone down the hall shouted, toss him a banana. More laughter. The sound bounced off the walls like bullets. Eli pressed himself into the corner, shaking. His wrists burned. His throat hurt. Sir, he whispered, can I please just call my mom? Miller turned, grinning. You deaf boy, you think this is a fucking daycare. She doesn't know where I am. Miller's smile dropped. He leaned in close. You know what I don't know? Why kids like you keep showing up here. You don't learn, you just keep coming. Over and over. It's like some damn factory. He slammed his hand against the bars. You see this? This is my job. You make my job. You ought to thank me. Brent took a sip of coffee, spit a brown stream into a trash can. You'll call your mommy when we're done with real criminals. Until then, sit tight and think about your life choices. The sergeant added, if he even has a mom. Half of them don't. Maybe she's out protesting or making another one. The men in the cell looked away, silent. Eli's eyes filled, but he blinked them back. Miller exhaled, bored. Fuck it. Leave him. Maybe he'll pray his way out. He turned to go. Brent followed, but not before leaning in close. Hey kid, you better hope the paperwork don't get lost. Sometimes it does, and when that happens, well, you just disappear for a while. He winked. Sleep tight. The door slammed shut. The light flickered. The room hummed with low breathing and the weight of too much silence. A man with gray hair finally spoke. First time. Eli nodded. The man gave a dry, humorless laugh. Yeah, they always start soft the first time. Next time they don't even talk. They just hit you. Eli whispered, I just want to go home. Another man said quietly, we all did once. Someone else muttered from the corner, home don't want us no more. Laughter, bitter, cracked, then quiet again. Eli looked down at his wrists. The skin beneath the cuffs was bleeding now. He whispered to no one, I didn't do anything. Outside, a voice echoed down the hall. Yo, Miller, got room for one more. Fresh catch, mouthy one this time. Laughter followed, sharp and ugly. Eli closed his eyes, and for the first time he felt the truth settle in his bones. Here you weren't judged by what you did, you were judged by the color you were born in. and that verdict had already been decided. The door slammed shut with a heavy clang that seemed to swallow all the air in the room. For a long moment, nothing moved, not even breath. Only the hum of the flickering light above and the slow rhythmic drip from a busted pipe behind the wall. The cell smelled of rust, sweat and old fear, the kind that never left. Eli sat in the far corner, knees pulled close, staring at the scuffed floor where some older carving, a name, maybe, had been scratched into the concrete and worn away by time. His wrists burned. Every pulse sent a throb of pain through the bruises. His mouth was dry, his tongue felt thick. Somewhere behind the bars, someone coughed, and the sound echoed like a gunshot. "Kid." The voice came low, rough, but not unkind. Eli looked up. The man with the gray beard was watching him. Tall, wide shoulders, eyes like old wood, tired but sharp. "First time in here." Eli nodded. He couldn't find his voice. The man chuckled softly, the sound scraping his throat. "Yeah, you look it. Still got that hope smell on you." A few of the others laughed. Not mean, just broken. From the other side of the cell, a skinny man spoke without looking up. "Ain't nobody comin', kid. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not unless your name's carved on a courthouse." Eli swallowed hard. I didn't do anything wrong." That made them all laugh again. A tired, bitter sound that came from deep in the chest. "None of us did, little man," said another. "That's kinda the trick. They don't need you to be guilty. They just need you to fit the story." The gray-bearded man nodded. "You breathe wrong, they call it resisting." He shifted, bones cracking. "You blink too slow, they call it attitude." A pause. "You look scared, they call it suspicious." Eli frowned, voice trembling. "What did they say you did?" No one answered right away. Then slowly, the stories came. "The tail light guy." The skinny one raised his hand. "That be me." Said my tail light was out. I said, "Okay officer, I'll fix it." He said, "Step out the car." I said, "For what?" He said, "Because I said so." He laughed dryly. Next thing I know, I'm on the pavement, knee on my neck, my little girl crying in the back seat. He rubbed the back of his neck, showing faint scars. "They checked later. Light wasn't even broken." Eli blinked. "They didn't let you go?" "Hell no." Said I. "Resisted. 48 hours for obstruction." He looked up, eyes half-lidded. 48 hours, over a damn bulb. The soda incident. An older man with cracked knuckles leaned forward. "Me, gas station, bought a Coke. Lady followed me the whole time like I had robbery on my forehead. I pay, she still calls the cops." Eli's voice was small. "Why?" She said I looked aggressive. He spread his hands. "I guess black plus thirsty equals threat." He pointed at a faint scar under his left eye. "This right here, asphalt burn. My face met the pavement before my name even left my mouth." Someone muttered, "Depends who's wearing the hoodie, huh?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, they see danger where there's just skin." The park arrest, a heavy man sitting by the door spoke next. "Took my daughter to feed ducks at Lakewood Park. She's 8. Some lady called 911, said a black man was acting strange near a little girl." He swallowed hard. "They came, asked me who she was. I said, my daughter. They told her to step back." His eyes clouded. "She cried. I tried to reach for her. They tackled me. Right in front of her. Told her it was for her safety." He looked down at his hands. "You ever see your baby look at you like she don't recognize you?" Silence fell like dust. Eli's stomach twisted. The stories bled together. Different faces, same script. He stared at the ground, the dirty light slicing across the floor like prison bars. "Why?" he whispered. "Why do they do that?" The gray-bearded man rubbed his jaw. "Because they can." Another man added, "Because the badge is the shield, and we're the targets that don't fight back." Someone in the back said, "You ever see the way they look at us, like they're huntin', like they need it?" A few heads nodded. The air grew heavier. The gray-bearded man looked at Eli again. "You got people out there." "My mom," Eli said. She's the mayor." That made the room stop. For half a second, silence. Then laughter broke out. Rough, sharp, half disbelief, half pity. "The mayor," someone said. "Oh hell, we got royalty in the building." Another added, "Guess the system don't care who your mama is, huh?" The gray-bearded man chuckled low. "Son, I've been in here with preachers, teachers, even a judge's cousin. Don't none of that matter when they see your face before your name. Eli's voice shook. She'll come, she'll get me out. The man sighed, leaning his head back. I hope she does, kid. But until that door opens, you just another black boy they can put on a report and sleep fine after. He looked up at the buzzing light. That's how it works. They don't need guilt, they just need someone to blame. And we're always right on time. Hours crawled by. The hum of the lights never stopped. Somewhere down the hall, a cop laughed, a harsh, barking laugh that echoed through the vents. Every so often, one of them would stomp by, peering in through the narrow slot, making faces, pretending to bark like a dog. Still alive in there, boys. One of them jeered. Smells like a damn zoo. No one answered. The gray-bearded man muttered, don't give 'em what they want, they feed on fear. Eli nodded, even though he didn't really understand. He pressed his head against the wall. It was cold, damp, grounding. He thought about his baseball, the white leather, the carved letters E. Carter, lying somewhere in the grass under the sunlight. He thought of the porch, the woman's voice, the phone call, the hand on his neck, the cuffs biting his wrists. And then he thought of how the cops never even looked him in the eye, like he was already a file number before he spoke. That thought sat in his chest, like a stone. He whispered, it's not supposed to be like this. The gray-bearded man looked at him, eyes soft but broken. Son, he said quietly, this is how it's supposed to be. That's the part they don't tell you. Hours passed, no one came. The air grew colder, the lights dimmer, and Eli sat there, smaller now, somehow, staring into the dark corner of the room, where the shadows gathered like everything that had ever been stolen. He didn't cry, he just breathed, slow and quiet, the way a person does when they finally understand that the system wasn't broken. It was built exactly this way. The station was half asleep, it was past 11, and the air inside carried the heavy scent of burnt coffee, cold sweat, and wet carpet. Phones rang somewhere deep in the building, their metallic tones blending with the low hum of fluorescent lights that flickered and buzzed like dying insects. Somewhere, a vending machine clicked, then fell silent again. Two officers sat behind the front desk, one scrolling on his phone, the other lazily flipping through paperwork he wasn't reading. The world outside had gone quiet, but inside the building, there was a strange kind of stillness, the kind that came when people thought no one was watching. Then the glass doors swung open. A gust of cool night air slipped in with her. Regina Carter, still in her navy evening coat from the civic dinner, stepped into the lobby. Her heels clicked once on the tile, sharp and steady. Her hair was pinned up immaculately, the pearls at her neck catching the dull light, but her face was taut, pale, and lined with something that wasn't fear so much as controlled panic. She looked like a woman who had spent the last 6 hours calling every number she could think of, and running out of air between each one. Good evening, she said evenly, voice calm, but carved out of glass. I need to file a missing person report. The younger officer straightened up, phone sliding out of his hand. A name, ma'am. Her tone didn't waver. Eli Carter, 9 years old, missing since this morning. The name hung in the air for a beat. The older officer looked up from his clipboard, his brows knitting. Wait, Carter. Yes, she said. My son. Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, dread, calculation. He swallowed. Ma'am, I'm sure there's no need to panic. Kids that age. Her gaze cut through him, sharp enough to stop breath. He's not kids that age. Check your logs. He hesitated, glancing at his partner, then turned toward the computer. Fingers clacked across the keyboard. The younger officer leaned over, frowning at the screen. The hum of the lights filled the silence. A moment later, his expression shifted. He said softly, we did get a minor earlier. No ID, said his name was Eli. Regina's chest went still. For a heartbeat she didn't move, didn't even blink. Then she drew in one long breath, and folded her hands over the desk, steady. Where is he? The officer shifted in his chair. Holding, ma'am. But that's standard procedure. We were gonna process him in the morning. The morning. Her voice didn't rise, but something in it made both men straighten. You have a 9-year-old child locked in a cell with adults, overnight, without confirming who he is. Neither officer spoke. The only sound was the flicker of the lights overhead. Then from down the hall, faint, cracked but unmistakable, came a voice. "Mom!" Both officers froze. Regina's head snapped toward the sound. "Mom, I'm here." The voice was trembling, desperate, filled with a panic that didn't belong to a child. It belonged to someone who'd already seen too much. She took one step forward, her breath catching in her throat. "Open that door," she said quietly. "Ma'am, we can't. Open the door." She didn't shout. She didn't need to. Her voice had the gravity of command, and the exhaustion of a mother who'd run out of patience for other people's excuses. The older officer hesitated, then hit the buzzer. The lock released with a hard click. The hallway was narrow, its walls painted the color of dust. The floor was scuffed, stained and sticky in places. Somewhere, a draft hissed through an unseen vent, carrying the faint scent of sweat and disinfectant. At the far end, behind the small barred window of the holding cell, a boy stood on his toes, his face pressed to the steel bars. Eli. His hoodie was smeared with grime from the concrete bench, his cheeks blotched red from tears and exhaustion. When he saw her, his knees almost gave out. "Mom!" Regina froze mid-step. For a full second, her body refused to move. The distance between them, those 10 meters of gray tile, felt like miles of battlefield. Then her hand rose, trembling slightly. As she walked forward, she gripped the metal slot in the door. "Eli." Her voice cracked once, just once. "Sweetheart." "Mom," he sobbed. "They didn't believe me. I told them who I was. They said I was lying. He broke off, swallowing a cry. His voice was small, but it carried the weight of everything that had happened since the sirens. Regina drew a long breath, forced steel into her tone. "It's all right," she said softly. "I'm here now." Behind her 2 voices echoed. Laughter cut short mid-sentence. Miller and Brent turned the corner. The smirk on Miller's face vanished instantly. Brent's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. "Madam Mayor," Miller started, voice cracking halfway through. Regina turned, and the hallway went silent. "Explain." Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was precise, the kind of calm that came right before a storm. "Ma'am," Brent stammered, "it's not what it looks like. We had a call about a possible break-in." "A break-in," she repeated. "My son was carrying a baseball. You cuffed him, detained him, and left him in a room full of grown men. You didn't even log his name." Miller tried a weak smile. "It's just protocol, ma'am." "Protocol?" Her tone sharpened. "Tell me where it says that in your handbook." "Go ahead, quote the line that says ignore due process for black minors." "I'll wait." The corridor went still. The only sound was Eli's breathing behind the bars. "Mom," he whispered, voice shaking. "It's okay. I'm fine." She looked back at him, eyes glistening, hand pressed to the cold metal. "No baby," she said quietly. "It's not okay. None of this is." The older desk sergeant appeared at the end of the hall, trying to look busy. "Ma'am, if you'll just fill out the release form." She turned slowly, every movement measured. "You mean the release that should have been filed hours ago, before you left my son sitting in a cell?" He stammered something about backlog, but his voice was barely audible. Regina straightened to her full height. The pearls around her neck gleamed under the buzzing light. When she spoke again, her voice was calm, almost too calm. "You will release him, now, and then you will prepare to explain, to the Oversight Committee, to Internal Affairs, and to me, how this happened, line by line, name by name." Her words hit like a hammer against glass. Miller finally muttered, "Brent, get the key." Brent fumbled for his belt, hands shaking. The metal key scraped against the lock before turning. The door opened with a creak. Eli stepped forward, blinking against the light. His knees wobbled. For a moment, he didn't move, afraid this was another trick. Then Regina knelt, the woman who'd spent her life keeping composure in front of cameras now trembling in front of her child. She brushed the hair off his forehead. "It's over," she whispered. "You're coming home." He clutched her coat sleeve. "I just wanted to say sorry to the lady. I didn't even do anything." Regina's jaw set tight, her voice dropped to a low razor edge. "You don't have to apologize for existing." Then she turned to the officers. Her tone changed, cold, deliberate, formal. "I'm not here as your mayor right now," she said. "I'm here as a mother. But tomorrow morning," she paused, letting the silence stretch, I'll be both. She stood, hand still on Eli's shoulder. The two of them walked down the hallway, passing Miller and Brent like ghosts walking through statues. No one breathed. No one met her eyes. At the desk, the sergeant tried to call out, voice weak and trembling. Madam Mayor, please, if we could just clarify. She didn't turn around. Her voice echoed back through the corridor, sharp and certain. You already did. Now I'll show you what accountability looks like. Outside, the night had gone still again. The black SUV idled at the curb, headlights carving through the dark. Eli climbed in first, curling up against the seat, eyes half closed. Regina stood there for a moment, staring at the precinct. The glass doors, the flickering sign, the same indifferent light spilling through the windows. Behind those walls, the hum of laughter had stopped. The air had shifted. She took one long breath, her reflection faint in the glass, and saw what every mother sees when the system finally touches her own blood. Not fear, but fire. She got into the car, and closed the door softly. The sound was small, almost gentle, but it felt like a gunshot, ripping through the quiet night. The house was silent when they came home. Not peaceful, just hollow. It was nearly midnight. The driveway glistened under the rain, and the faint hum of the city outside felt distant, like the world had quietly shut its eyes. Inside, the air was still warm from earlier, the kind of warmth that didn't comfort. The faint tick of the kitchen clock marked each passing second like a heartbeat that refused to rest. Eli sat at the table, wrapped in a blanket too big for him. His hoodie clung to his shoulders, still damp, and small red lines ringed his wrists where the cuffs had bitten deep. His hair stuck up in uneven tufts. Every few seconds he rubbed his hands together like he still couldn't get the cold out. Across the kitchen, Regina moved in slow, practiced motions, the way people move when they've been holding their breath for hours. She turned on the kettle, found a clean towel, wiped the same spot on the counter twice. Anything to keep her hands busy. Anything to stop her from thinking about the image that wouldn't leave her mind. Her son's face behind iron bars. The rain pressed softly against the windows, steady and relentless. Each drop sounded like a quiet accusation. Across the room, Daniel Carter stood by the counter, his tie-loosened shirt collar open, sleeves rolled high on his arms. His eyes were dark, deep, unreadable. He had come home the moment Regina called, hadn't even changed out of his work clothes. There was mud on his shoes from running through the rain to the car. Now he stood watching them both, his jaw set, one hand braced on the countertop, as though holding himself back from breaking something. For a long time no one spoke. Finally Daniel said softly, "You okay, son?" Eli's fingers tightened around the blanket. "I'm fine," he said. Too quickly, too high, his voice cracked on the word fine. Regina placed a warm cup of milk in front of him, the steam curling faintly in the kitchen light. "Drink," she said. Slowly, he obeyed, eyes fixed on the tabletop. The milk trembled in the cup as his hands shook. After a moment he spoke again, almost to himself. "They didn't even ask my name." Daniel's gaze sharpened. "Who?" "The cops," Eli whispered. "They just looked at me like I was lying. When I told them you were my mom, they laughed." The sentence hung in the air like smoke. Regina sat down across from him, folding her hands. Her voice was soft, steady, but her knuckles were white. "Tell us everything," she said. He did. Not as a story, but in fragments, words tumbling out between long pauses and shaky breaths. The cell was full, all black. No one talked for a while. Then this man said he was arrested, 'cause his tail light was out. Another guy, he was feeding ducks with his daughter. Eli's eyes flickered upward. They said he looked suspicious. He swallowed. They were all just tired, Mom, like they already knew no one was gonna believe them. Regina's throat tightened. She pressed a hand to her mouth, her nails leaving faint marks on her skin. She didn't interrupt. Daniel just stood, his reflection in the window staring back at him, a tall, silent man with eyes that had stopped blinking. Eli went on, his voice quieter now. "They said sometimes they hold people for 2 days, make them sign things they don't even understand. Said that's how it works." He looked between them. They weren't angry, they were just used to it. The rain outside grew heavier, drumming against the glass like soft applause for the cruelty of the world. Daniel exhaled slowly, rubbing his temples. "Jesus," he whispered. Regina's eyes stayed on her son. "And you believed them?" Eli nodded, his voice flat. "Yeah, because they were right." The clock ticked on. The air in the room felt thicker now. Grief, rage, exhaustion folding together into something wordless. Regina leaned back in her chair, staring through the window. Rain streaked the glass in thin silver trails. Her reflection looked older, smaller, and somehow farther away. "I've given speeches about reform," she said softly, "signed bills, cut ribbons, stood in front of cameras and said we were making progress." Her tone hardened. "And all that time, I thought I was changing something." Daniel turned, pushing away from the counter. He walked over and placed both hands on the table. The weight of them made the silverware rattle. "We will," he said quietly, "but not from a podium this time." He pulled his phone from his pocket, screen glowing pale blue in the dim kitchen light. His fingers moved fast, scrolling through contacts. Then he pressed call. "Mark," he said when the line picked up. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned. "I need every public arrest record from the last 6 months. Cross-check for race, age and precinct. Start tonight." "Yeah, all of it." He ended the call, placed the phone down beside Eli's cup. The sound of it hitting the table was small but sharp. Eli blinked. "What are you doing?" Regina looked at him. "We're going to show people what you saw in that cell." Her tone was low but steady, the voice of a woman who'd crossed a line inside herself she couldn't uncross. Daniel met her eyes. "You know what this means. Once we start." "I know," she said, cutting him off gently. "Once we start we don't stop." He nodded. The silence between them wasn't heavy this time. It was agreement. Eli watched them, the way they stood close but didn't touch, the quiet fire in their eyes. He didn't understand all of it, not yet, but he felt something shift in the air, like a current that had been flowing the wrong way for too long had finally turned. Regina stood, smoothing her coat sleeves, her eyes on the rain. "We start in the morning." Daniel nodded once. "And we start with that precinct." Eli hesitated, then said softly, "Mom." She turned, and the lines in her face softened. "I don't want them to hurt anyone else." She knelt beside him, her knees sinking into the soft rug. Her hand cupped his cheek, cool, gentle, trembling just slightly. "They won't," she said quietly. "Not if I can help it." Eli's eyes filled, and for a moment he didn't feel 9. He felt ancient, like he'd seen too much of the world in one night. Outside, thunder rolled again, low, distant, a warning. Rain battered the windows harder now, streaking down like glass tears. Inside, the house stayed still, but in that small kitchen, among the ticking clock, the cooling milk, the echoes of a child's story, something irreversible had begun. Each heartbeat was a promise, each breath a vow, and when Regina finally reached over, taking her husband's hand across the table, it wasn't comfort she sought, it was resolve. By sunrise, the house on Maple Avenue no longer felt like a home. It felt like a command center dressed as a kitchen. The faint gray light of dawn slipped through the blinds, washing the room in a colorless glow. The air smelled of stale coffee, printer ink, and something sharper, urgency. Daniel Carter sat at the dining table, sleeves rolled to his elbows, surrounded by open laptops, scattered papers, and half-empty mugs. The glow of multiple screens lit his face from below, painting hard lines under his eyes. Every few seconds, he'd jot something in a notebook, the scratch of the pen steady, methodical, restrained fury, translated into neat handwriting. Across the room, Regina moved from one call to the next, her voice even, clipped, efficient. She didn't pace, she glided, calm and precise, as if any crack in composure would let the whole thing collapse. "Yes, I've already spoken with the commissioner. No, I'm not making a statement until the full report is confirmed." Pause, then confirm it faster. Her phone buzzed again before she even hung up. She didn't look tired, she looked awakened. Eli sat curled on the couch, wrapped in a blanket that still smelled faintly of detergent and smoke. The morning news played low on the television, his own face looping every few minutes, replayed and slowed down, dissected like evidence. The words ran in bold letters across every channel. "Mayor's son wrongfully detained by Brookline police." Eli's eyes were fixed on the screen, but his thoughts were somewhere else, in the cell, in the flickering light, in the eyes of the men who had told him, "This is how it works." Then came the footage, grainy body cam clips. The image stuttered, blurred, but there was no mistaking it. A small boy kneeling on the curb, a white woman pointing, shouting, "He's dangerous," a voice off camera barking, "Hands where I can see them." Even the anchors stopped pretending to be neutral. Their voices softened, lowered, the way people talk at funerals. The city stopped. For a moment, even the news seemed to hold its breath. At City Hall, the air vibrated with noise. Reporters crowded the marble steps, elbows jostling, microphones flashing like lightning in a storm. Cameramen shouted for angles. Drones hovered above the fountain. The world wanted a statement. When Regina Carter stepped up to the podium, the chaos dimmed to a low hum. She wore black, no pearls, no makeup beyond necessity. Her hands gripped the edges of the podium just once before she began. "Good morning." The words were quiet, but they silenced the crowd. "My son," she said, her voice steady, each syllable a measured strike, "was arrested without cause, held without charge, and denied his rights under the law." A ripple moved through the press pool. Cameras tilted closer. "But this," she continued, her eyes lifting to meet the crowd, "is not just about my son. This is about every mother who has waited for a phone call that never came." The crowd stilled. Even the rain from the night before seemed to hold in the clouds. Somewhere behind her, Daniel stood just out of the frame, hands clasped behind his back, eyes scanning the faces, not as a husband, but as someone memorizing who would choose silence next. Regina's voice never trembled. "I have ordered a full investigation into the Brookline Police Department's conduct. This will not be handled quietly. It will not be buried under paperwork or politics. This city deserves sunlight, and we will bring it." Cameras clicked, flashes flared, then came the shouting. "Mayor Carter, do you plan to press charges? Was this racially motivated? Are you calling for the chief's resignation?" Regina stepped back from the microphones. "The facts will speak louder than I ever could," and she walked away. No security escort, no speechwriter trailing behind, just her, walking through the sea of lights and lenses, her back straight, her face unreadable. By noon the internet had ignited. #Justice for Eli trended worldwide. Every social feed carried the same image. Eli's small wrists, ringed with faint bruises, a photo Daniel hadn't wanted to release, but Regina insisted. "Let them see what silence looks like," she had said. Within hours, artists painted murals, parents reposted, and churches rang their bells for every unseen boy. Cable news turned into a digital courtroom. On one split screen, activists, lawyers, community leaders, on another retired officers defending procedure. "If this can happen to the mayor's son," said one anchor, "what happens to the children who don't have cameras, or titles, or mothers in office?" Another added, voice thick, "This isn't one mistake, it's a blueprint." Eli watched, blanket pulled tight, heart sinking under the noise. He didn't like hearing his name like that, repeated, #weaponized. He turned the volume down and whispered, almost to himself, "They're talking about the others now." Regina, walking past with another phone in her hand, stopped mid-step. She looked at him, really looked at him, and said quietly, "That's the point, sweetheart." Her voice carried both pride and pain. By evening, Daniel appeared on national television. The set was cold, sterile, too bright. He wore a navy suit and no expression. The anchor asked the questions carefully, like handling glass. "Mr. Carter, your wife has called for reform within the Brookline Police Department. What's your stance?" Daniel didn't blink. "My stance," he said, "is simple. Accountability is not radical, it's overdue." He leaned forward slightly, his voice steady, surgical. 73% of local arrests this year were of black residents, less than 30% resulted in charges. Many were detained beyond the legal limit, without counsel, without contact, without reason. He paused. "My son's story is one night of it. There are thousands of nights like it, without headlines, without names." The anchor hesitated, throat tight. "And what happens now?" Daniel looked straight into the camera. "Now," he said, "we make them answer." At the Brookline precinct, panic spread faster than the news crawl. Phones rang non-stop. The chief's door stayed locked. Desks slammed. Voices rose. Miller sat at a small desk, pale, eyes darting between the muted TV and the folder in his hands. His coffee shook when he lifted it. Across from him, Brent stared at the screen, replaying Regina's press conference. "Jesus Christ," Brent muttered. "We're done." Miller's jaw worked. "She's not gonna stop." "You think," Brent snapped, "she's the goddamn mayor?" They both fell silent when the footage replayed. The porch, the cuffs, the trembling voice saying, "Please sir." Miller muttered, voice low, "You were right there too." Brent didn't look away from the screen. "Doesn't matter, they'll hang us both." Regina's voice came through the speakers, echoing faintly in the room. "This department will be held accountable. We will not bury this under bureaucracy. We will bring sunlight." Miller's hand slammed the power button. The TV went black. The silence after was worse. That night, the house was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet. Not fear, not even relief. Something else, like standing at the edge of a storm and knowing it's finally moving in your favor. Eli lay in bed, half asleep. The glow of city lights spilled across the ceiling, making the shadows dance. Regina sat beside him, still in the same clothes from the morning, exhaustion sitting heavy in her bones. "Mom," Eli murmured, eyes half open, "they're not gonna like you for this." She smiled faintly, brushing his hair back from his forehead. "They don't have to." He blinked, fighting sleep. "Then why are you doing it?" Her hand lingered on his cheek, thumb tracing the faint mark from the cuff. "Because you called my name," she whispered. "And too many mothers never get to hear theirs called back." Eli's breathing slowed, the weight of her words settled over the room like a blanket. Outside, the city stirred. Hundreds had gathered in front of City Hall, candles flickering in the dusk, handmade signs swaying in the wind. "Justice for all, end racial detainment, no one's son deserves this." Their voices rose together chanting, not angry, not violent, just human. Each word hit the night air like a heartbeat. Inside the Carter home, the lights dimmed. Daniel stood by the window, watching the glow of protest reflect in the rain-slick streets below. Regina remained by her son's side, one hand still resting on his arm. They didn't speak. They didn't sleep. The city was finally awake, and somewhere between the echo of chants and the steady pulse of rain, the first cracks in the system began to show. The storm hadn't stopped since the press conference. Rain washed the city clean, or tried to, but inside the Carter home, the war room only grew louder. The dining table was buried in files, arrest records, sworn statements, copies of disciplinary reports no one was supposed to see. Every hour, new names arrived. Every story sounded the same. Daniel read aloud from one affidavit, voice low and even, detained 36 hours, no lawyer, no call, released without charge. He looked up, "This makes 7 in 2 days." Regina nodded, "Keep counting." Across the table, Eli listened silently. He wasn't supposed to be part of it, but no one had the heart to send him to bed. By the third night, they weren't alone anymore. The living room filled with people, lawyers, activists, 2 pastors, and 3 of the men from Eli's holding cell. The gray-bearded man sat on the couch, hat in his hands. When Regina entered, he stood awkwardly. "Ma'am, I never thought I'd be sitting in a mayor's house." She smiled faintly, "Neither did I." He nodded toward Eli. "That boy, he made us remember we mattered." Daniel motioned everyone closer. "Here's where we are," he said, spreading out the files. "We have over 50 written testimonies, all consistent. We can prove a pattern of unlawful detainment, falsified charges, and racial profiling." He paused. "What we don't have is safety." A young public defender raised her hand. "You're saying they'll retaliate?" Daniel gave her a look. "They already have." He turned one page, a photo of a vandalized car, traitor spray painted across the hood. "Officer Whitley found this outside our associate's apartment last night. Internal Affairs says it's being reviewed." "That's code for buried." Regina leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Then we don't rely on Internal Affairs, we take it federal." The room murmured. A journalist spoke up. "Ma'am, going federal means exposing every corrupt officer publicly. That's political suicide." Regina's tone was calm, almost detached. "Then so be it." Later that night, she and Daniel stood in the kitchen alone. He poured coffee, said quietly, "You're risking your seat, Regina. The governor's already calling this a distraction from real policy." She looked at him, eyes tired but fierce. "Real policy doesn't matter if people are afraid to walk home." He smiled faintly. "You sound like me." She smiled back. "I married a lawyer." Some of it had to rub off. Then the smile faded. "What if we can't win, Dan?" He set the cup down, resting his hand on hers. Then we make them bleed trying. The threats escalated fast. Anonymous letters slid under their office door. Back off or next time it's not your kid in cuffs. One night, a black sedan sat parked outside the house for hours. No plates, no lights, just waiting. Eli saw it first from his window. "Mom," he whispered, "they're watching us." Regina came up behind him, rested her hands on his shoulders. "Let them," she said softly. "They can watch all they want. We're not the ones hiding." By week's end they filed the motion, Carter et al. Versus the City of Brookline Police Department. The complaint listed 126 victims, spanning 4 years of misconduct, 30 pages of evidence, 21 officers named, and 3 specific counts of systemic racial bias. The next morning, the headline screamed, "Mayor and Lawyer Sip and Sioux City's own police force." Carter case set to shake state politics. At a private meeting downtown, the chief of police and 2 senior officials waited for Regina in a silent room. One of them, the state attorney general, gray-haired, measured, leaned forward. "Regina, you've made your point. Drop this now. The press cycle will move on in a week." She didn't blink. "And if I don't," he sighed, "you'll burn every bridge you've built." Regina's voice was calm, quiet, final. "Then I guess we'll see how far the fire spreads." That night, at home, Daniel and Regina sat in the living room with the lights off, the city glowing faintly outside. Eli came down the stairs, clutching a blanket. "Can I stay here?" Daniel nodded. "Of course." Eli curled up on the couch between them, half asleep, his parents on either side, silent, thinking, planning. In the background, a TV anchor's voice drifted from a muted screen. "Sources say the Carter lawsuit could redefine racial accountability across the state. But the backlash from law enforcement unions is already growing." Regina looked at her son, then at her husband. She whispered, almost to herself, "They wanted to scare us quiet." Daniel replied, "They picked the wrong family." Outside, the rain finally stopped, but thunder still rolled somewhere beyond the skyline. The courthouse smelled like rain and marble. Outside, hundreds gathered behind barricades, holding signs that rippled in the wind. "Justice for Eli, end the bias. We see you." Inside, the hallways buzzed, reporters, security, whispered prayers. Every step echoed, every camera clicked. In the courtroom, Regina Carter sat between her husband and son. Eli wore a simple white shirt, sleeves covering the faint scars on his wrists. He kept his hands clasped tight in his lap, eyes fixed on the floor, until the judge entered. "All rise." The sound of shuffling feet filled the room. The trial had stretched for weeks, evidence, motions, objections. But today was different. Today, the defense had run out of places to hide. Daniel Carter rose from his seat and approached the bench. His tone was steady, deliberate, surgical. "Your Honor, today we bring testimony not from politicians, not from experts, but from citizens. The people this system was built to protect, and instead betrayed." He turned. "Mr. Leon Graves, please take the stand." The gray-bearded man from the holding cell stood, hat in hand. He looked smaller under the fluorescent lights but unafraid. He cleared his throat. "Name's Leon Graves. Arrested last March. They said I broke into a store. Truth is I work there. Got keys and everything. Guess I didn't look like I belonged." A low murmur rippled through the room. "Mr. Graves," Daniel asked, "how long were you held?" 54 hours. "Were you ever charged?" He shook his head. "No sir, just released. No apology, nothing." Daniel nodded. "Thank you." When Graves stepped down, a young woman replaced him, then an older man, then another. Each story built on the last, like bricks stacking into a wall no one could look away from. On the defense side, Sergeant Miller sat stone-faced. His lawyer whispered constantly, but Miller just stared at the table. Behind him, Brent fidgeted, jaw tight, sweat traced his temple. When Daniel displayed the arrest logs on the screen, line after line marked, "Unprocessed, no ID, released pending review," a gasp rippled through the courtroom. Regina leaned forward, her voice cutting the silence. "These aren't numbers, they're people, fathers, daughters, sons, If this is what procedures looks like, then procedure is broken. The judge looked at her, expression unreadable, but didn't silence her. 2 hours later, the courtroom reached its breaking point. The defense tried to argue standard police discretion. Daniel countered quietly, discretion that only applies to one color isn't discretion, it's discrimination. That sentence hung in the air like smoke. The judge called a brief recess. Outside the courthouse, chants grew louder. The crowd stretched down the block. Reporters jostled for position. Eli pressed his face to the glass, watching. They came, he whispered. Regina placed a hand on his shoulder. They came because you did. When court reconvened, the tension was electric. The judge's verdict came slowly, word by word, measured and deliberate. After reviewing all evidence and testimony, this court finds the Brookline Police Department guilty of systemic violation of due process and unlawful detainment based on racial profiling. The room exhaled. Miller's lawyer tried to object. The gavel slammed down hard. Order. The sentence continued. Individual officers will face criminal proceedings. The department shall undergo federal oversight effective immediately. Eli's hand slipped into his mother's. Daniel closed his eyes, the faintest smile breaking through years of restraint. Outside, the city erupted. People cheered. Some cried. News vans lined the streets. Reporters called it the Carter verdict. Regina stood at the top of the courthouse steps, cameras flashing in her face. She waited until the noise dimmed just enough. Then she spoke. This is not the end. This is the beginning. Justice isn't a single case, it's a promise, and we will keep that promise. Eli stood beside her, looking out at the crowd. Somewhere among them, Leon Graves waved, not at the mayor but at the boy who had once sat beside him in silence. Eli smiled, small but certain. That night, back home, the city lights flickered across their living room walls. Regina poured herself a glass of water. Daniel sat beside her, and Eli rested his head against her shoulder. Mom, he said quietly. Yes. Do you think it's really over? She looked at him, at the same child she had found behind bars weeks ago, and shook her head. No, she said softly, it's never over, but now at least, we're not alone. The camera would have pulled back then, out through the window, past the streetlights, over the city where chants still echoed in the distance. Text fades in. That was the day justice spoke, not just for one boy, but for everyone the system tried to silence.